Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for making time in your evening to come out to this event. We're going to have two artist talks, and I think you know why you're here, but just to say a couple of words about how this all came together. My name is Fereshteh Toosi. I'm an assistant professor in the Art and Art History department at FIU. And this is one of our newest facilities, the FIU part of Manna Linwood. We have a lot of activity going on here between all the different departments that are represented in CARTA, communication, architecture. We have an awesome musician who teaches here, and you can see the work from our landscape architecture program on the walls. So welcome to the space. I am hosting this event because back in 2017, I had the great privilege to travel to Cyprus for a festival called the Urban Emptiness Festival. And one of our artists tonight, we're going to hear from two people, Sophia Hadjipapa was one of the organizers of this festival. Urban Emptiness was a festival dedicated to arts in public spaces, performance works, walking events, happenings, you name it. We were doing all this in the city of Nicosia, Cyprus. And so we met and we got to know each other. And when I came back to the States, I was thinking, oh, there must be some way for, my fellow professor of arts to come to FIU to kind of, maybe we can have a collaboration, bring some exchange. Then, well, that didn't happen right away, but Sophia did manage to find a grant through the Erasmus program, which is an EU program that funds not only faculty exchanges, but student exchanges. So we were very lucky to receive that, and thank you for finding that grant. And then, what was even better was we got a second person to come on to the grant, which is our second artist, Demetra Englezou, who you'll hear from in just a moment. So I'm really excited that we got this 2-for-1 exchange. Just to brief by before I turn it over to them, because they're going to be talking a bit about their work. Demetra Englezou is the coordinator of graphic design BA at European University Cyprus, also the founder and director of the International Motion Festival, and the artistic director of the I Love Graphic Festival. So the other day, actually yesterday, we had a nice reading with the students and others who came to the Frost where we showed some of the work from that festival. And Sophia Hadjipapa is an associate professor in the Fine Arts program at European University Cyprus. She has a BA and a master's in painting and a PhD in art history and theater. So Dr. Hadjipapa actually also has some works on display over here. They came all the way over from Cyprus, and you're welcome to check those out. I will be hearing about some of those works in the talks. I'm going to just hand it over to them because they have a lot to say about their work, and I'm really glad you made time in your day. It's a very busy day, so thanks for being here. And I'll turn it over to you, Demi.
So hello everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the Fereshteh. I think we said most of the things. So I will start.
And I asked before we start to unlock your phone. Sorry. You go.
Demi also teaches social media, and so if you have any ideas about how to promote.
So, most of us think of motion as like something like a visual thing. And so if I walk the stage and if I do some gesture with my hands, that means this is some kind of motion. Yeah, so if I move my hands like this, don't actually see or we don't actually recognize. Or sometimes it's too subtle for the human eye. And the last years, we started to find also some cameras that they can recognize this motion if you are not careful enough to recognize. So let me show you what I mean. In the left video, you can see a video of a person's neck, and in the right video, you can see a video dog. It's my dog. So if I then tell you now that those are videos, you will assume that they're photographs. But we know that they're videos because if I click on the first one, you will see that's actually a subtle motion going on here, and you can see that the hair is actually bleeding slowly. Okay, now if we are about to touch the neck, we will feel the pulse. But it's not something we notice in everyday life. Like if you are doing a coffee with your friend, you will not notice all this motion that is happening here. Yes. The same thing goes with the video in the right side. So you can see he's breathing. Yes. If you place your hand on the dog's tummy, you can feel your hand, his chest going up and down. So both of these motions carry lots of significance because they're about breathing, and it's like very important. And sometimes we feel like we are not observing enough, but if we will touch it, we will feel things more. Now, keep this for now, and it will make some sense later on. So we are living in a world of motion, and this world is becoming more and more alive, and also motion in arts and design is something that has a natural evolution, and it's just begun. Okay? Therefore, motion design pedagogy, as let's say, brings together lots of things and lots of creative people. All motion graphic designers, they need to have a clear understanding that if you should do motion, you should understand time and space. Okay, time and space. So it's two things that you need to understand how they work together, not individually. So motion graphics, moreover, does not simply move in time, also moves through space, like I said before. And it has a rhythm and other things in order to say a particular story. So, one example is the vision. Then we have all this is the creative spectrum, okay, what we are looking at. So we have vision, motion, sound, time, and of course space. So all these aspects create they create the spectrum. Okay? So let's take a quick dive into history, just to see a few things how they are actually done. So once upon a time, before the smartphones, before the internet, it was what was called the analog times. And then people were more simple, they were drawing logos on papers and posters, and they were actually making things for canvases. So this type of people were called designers. And the film cinema later on invented some other things. Things started moving the screens, and then we had the animation. So everything was designed by hand, first black and white, and then color. So this was a very, very slow, laborious process because many people to make frame by frame. Okay? Later on, so in the 70s, computer generator machines appears, and then motion graphics started to become available. It was not called motion graphics So it was a very young, expressive thing to do, lots of outlets. And the nerds that they were taking and working on those master machines, they were co-animators. So designers were doing the concepts, they were giving them to the animators, and the animators would animate. And one example is the opening of the Star Wars, and it was one of the computer generators, example of sense. So in the 90s, computers got much faster and more affordable. So we have new software, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects, and of course, the screen appears. So everything becomes faster, and the demand of animation grew exponentially. The two professions, animation and designers, have to learn to each other. So these new hybrid species were called motion designers. So motion design is basically a design which is animated, but it's changing over time. So on the screen. So motion design is to both creation and animation. And it's a portfolio that is called both design, animation, but also editing and compositing, visual effects, and many more techniques that you can combine together. Stop motion, sound animation, or you can do mixed media, you can combine camera and handle animation together. So it's something that is keep evolving. Here is also all these needs for motion design right now. So this is about motion design. I just wanted to explain a few things. And now I will go a little back now again how I started working with motion design. I started doing my graphic design bachelor degree, and I knew I wanted to do something else, so they gave me the opportunity to do my specialization in animation back then. I studied in Bristol University, where the Artmans study. I don't know if you heard about them. The ones that dedicated to economic. So it had also a very good reputation in animation. And I had the opportunity to do my specialization in animation. Later on, I went into 3D computer animation in the National School of Computer Animation in Bournemouth. I did my master's degree there. And when I went back to Cyprus, I started working and collaborating with lots of broadcasting companies and TV channels. So, motion graphics then was not called motion graphics. It was not existing as a term yet. But this is what I was actually doing from the beginning of my career, because I was working on opening titles of shows, films. Later on, I was a creative director in a broadcasting satellite company that it had like 5 to 7 channels. That we were producing all the content that was broadcast in Asia and Dubai. So we had lots of work in motion design back then. So slowly I found my way, let's say, into the field that I feel that this makes me more happy. This is the first film I created with a specific combination of styles. This was done in 2009. And I got the award as the best film in the London Video Festival. So it was awarded as the best video art festival. So I will just show this now. motion art. Okay, so it's motion art and motion graphics again is two different terms because motion graphics is more for advertising reasons. You need to have a visual communication. You need to have a task. Motion art is more more close to fine art. So I work on few films for motion art, and now I will go to one project I am still working on. Now I'm continuing to the second part. It's called motion lights. So I talked before in the beginning when we started. I talked about the subtle motion that we have to touch. So it's motion that we don't recognize. And this was also my inspiration when I decided to use this for educational reasons. So I have developed a technique and I did my research to create something that can be used in universities in order to teach people motion graphics. So I used lots of interpreters and we did lots of work with people that they have hearing problems or they were deaf. Because it was very challenging for me to how to teach film and motion to people that they cannot hear or they cannot hear so well. Because it's very important to be able to synchronize, to feel the emotions of the sound of the music in order to create things very often. So in order to achieve this, I started to study different methods, how deaf people can feel the music and how it can be used in other disciplines, especially other disciplines like dance. I know people are dancing using the vibrations. So I said, okay, if they can dance using vibrations, why they cannot create animations using the vibrations? So I have developed this project, and first it was a trial, so we used the students. The theory was easy, it was a little bit difficult to get all these interpretations and start working with the students. So later on, we found solutions. We have created an app where the students were actually touching the app, and at the same time they will be able to do live animations. So the project went very well. Show you some examples. And this is one other idea that I found. So this is called visual audio, and again, it has to do with vibrations. So I was researching different things, like this one, and so through various of the pedagogical methods and different technical aids, we managed to get the students to create animations. The objective of the specific project was that they would try to use the same dynamics and to have the same advantages as people that they can hear. So this was a very big challenge. And we were attempting, in other words, to translate the music into moving paintings. I will not talk anymore about this, but there is a website of the project. Now I'm working on motion graphics too. The project was published in Ireland, and it is already used in Oxford University and Cloud University. If you want more details, I can send you stuff, and maybe you can also apply it in your classes. I mean, if you have people that have hearing problems, we are trying to use these techniques. So it's used and people can create animations. And of course, I will talk a little bit about the Motion Festival of Cyprus. It is the International Motion Festival, which started in 2012. I am the chair of the festival, and Sophia is also the artistic director. So this festival was created again due to another need that we felt like that the motion graphic designers they didn't have nowhere to showcase their work, and they were called also the invisible art because they used to in the city work in TV channels and stations, and they are behind computers. Something is broadcasting in a show, broadcasting in the television, and people just look at the show, but they don't think how someone did this opening, titles, someone did the weather design news, someone did these graphics of this documentary, and they look really good. So all these people, some way they were becoming like ghosts, and were chatting in a group that I had, and they were expressing their opinion that they don't have anywhere to showcase their work. So this is where the idea of the Motion Festival came. And the European University, I talked to the director of them, and the European University really supported the idea, and financially and generally. So we started this festival that expanded. It's a very big festival, and also our slogan here is beyond a film festival. And the reason is that later we decided to combine all the movie image together, not only motion design. So we gave this project, it was motion design, short films, video art, animation, all kind of animation. So it's the only festival in the Mediterranean that is actually combining all the movie images. So we have, it's biannual. Okay, now because of COVID we prefer to cancel one edition. It's biannual, and we receive more than 1,000 submissions every edition, and we are showcasing around 300 films from all over the world. Workshops, we have also lots of lectures, talks, networking, and the big award ceremony. For example, last year we had the creators of the opening titles of La Casa de Papel, and they were also awarded at the festival. And just one more photo. And just to mention that later on my interests also went through theater. So I'm also working a little bit with theater now, theater design and video. Okay. I will not show this below. And of course, social media design is another interest that I have. And I'm also making, I have my new research here, and I'm working with different ideas and illustrations, especially with Instagram. So that's it. Thank you.
Questions?
You can also take questions while we talk and afterwards too.
Yes.
We're small groups, so.
So would I.
Yeah, we can stick it up.
Okay, so initially I was thinking to
just talk about the book of hours, which I'm presenting here, but then I thought maybe you would like to get an idea of how I got where I got, because I've done many different things, and so I decided to share some of my other work and then conclude with the book of hours. My work, I think, has been very, very different over the years. Sometimes I feel that I'm a bit schizophrenic, but I've been told that actually there is a thread connecting all the works. So I'm hoping that I am not schizophrenic. So what I think is the bottom line connecting all the dots is probably this idea of latent and liminal identities and cultural transfers. After all, I'm also a hybrid. My mother is Bulgarian, my father is Cypriot, and I'm very strongly interested in national identities and others. So this is the art academy where I studied in Sophia. It's a very traditional academy. It was founded more than 100 years old, so my education was founded with this idea of the academy, the traditional idea of making rules of day, and basically. So 100 years later, this is us in the studio, a couple of friends of mine, and we were doing the same thing, as you can see, So I guess this guy over there, actually, is called Ivanov, and he's in the academy. We have a professor, and then we have an assistant to the professor. He was the assistant of the professor of our atelier, our workshop. And he's a conceptual artist, so he was always constantly wondering, what am I doing here? Because he was invited by my professor, who was a painter, a very good painter, a lawyer, and he was trying to make us think a bit more critically, and I think that he helped, because otherwise we would continue studying, thinking that our idea of painting these nudes was to create the nude as we know in art history, which is through the Middle Ages, and exoticizing and romanticizing these females. But he made us think about why is it that you come every day here and you paint nudes for 5 hours? I mean, what's the purpose of this? And he made us really think and made us really ponder on what was important for us in this process. And back then I was very much influenced by Chile, and this idea that actually the nude can be something more than erotic. Of course it can be erotic, but it can be also a carrier of many other feelings, and sometimes it can be even disturbing. So when I started doing my works, my idea was that I want to present the female body with a different gaze. We could call it sympathizing gaze to them rather than objectifying gaze, and thinking about how they're vulnerable, how they're placed in this situation of exhibitionism. Some of them were tormented women that had no other income, and some of them were aged, some of them were sick. So I was interested in this idea, how to give a different meaning to this female nude. And then the first, this was part of my thesis basically. It was a series of landscapes, and I think that landscape became very important to me because I tried to see it as a carrier of meanings, and not just as a descriptive view of a place, but as a carrier of emotions. And I was very highly influenced by Andrew Wyeth. I remember actually when I was thinking about what I'm going to present to you, and something, imagine in the Bulgaria of the 90s, I was, it was by Andrew Wyeth. I'm crazy that, but that is true. And so there was always this search for a hidden meaning in these landscapes. And then the next project that I was interested in, I called No More Tears, and it was related to this Johnson & Johnson shampoo. Maybe you remember the slogan, No More Tears, but of course in my case, the idea was that we create these domestic rituals, personal rituals, where we want to cleanse our soul from all the burdens that we carry around. And of course, water is kind of like seen as this purifying element that is supposed to do that. So we invent these rituals to uplift us. And so the whole series was done in personal spaces, in intimate rooms. And I was very much interested in the viewpoint. The viewpoint was very important to me because this is a viewpoint still before the mobiles. And I'm just saying that because this was before the selfies, and it was, let's say, a selfie before the selfie. So this viewpoint where I include myself, which strangely enough, again, it might have been influenced. I must have seen this painting of Frida Kahlo, and of course the surrealistic element is not something that is part of my work, but I was interested in this viewpoint of how can I make the viewer actually feel that he or she is me, And so this idea of these works, which, as I said, were personal, and again, the body is shown in a way which is vulnerable, which is fragile. This is called cystitis acuta. It's an illness, of course, as you know, and this is part of the National Collection of Contemporary Art in Cyprus. So I'm very happy that they also like it. I don't know why this is about. Okay, so yeah. And then somehow, these paintings, because remember, I studied painting and I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I only knew how to do painting, but then I was interested in how to incorporate space into this painting. So I got into these hybrid things that were both paintings and installations somehow. And they had a painted curtain of bathroom, but at the same time they had a real shower faucet. And then there was another piece in that series which actually had a mechanism behind, and it would move away. So this was the idea of these two people who are living together and they're sharing a bed, but actually they're also apart in their thoughts. So this personal space, which we always keep, and doesn't leave us. And then something else that was interesting for me at that period was the fact that we all create these addictions, which are also part of this effort to alleviate our suffering in a way, or to pause everything that's happening in life through becoming numb, let's say, in front of the TV. So this was part of it, and this was part of it. This was a strange picture that we saw in the bio. This was in a big exhibition in Bulgaria. It was actually a projection of a video on a painting. So again, I'm playing with this idea of painting, but not just painting, some movie painting, as they said before. And then I got to this project, which was, again, a return to the landscape, but a much more critical one, and the landscape was becoming political for me. So this is one of the leaders of Cyprus. He was an archbishop and a president at the same time. He was one, so he's considered a national figure. You can see a statue of him in almost every village and every town, Magarios. And there are a lot of thoughts around his personality, a lot of people are thinking, was he really that big personality? really help in the destruction of the island, the farming of the Turkish occupation, the way he was dealing with things. And of course, it's kind of weird that we have religious and political power into one person. And so I started making these landscapes where Easter decorations were kind of conversing with this figure. And basically the landscape was seen as the bearer of discrepancies in the social sphere. So here is an area which is very near my house. And you can see there are many disparate elements. We have the country, this is Cyprus country. Country actually in Cyprus was also seen as political because it's related to the oriental side of, so it was related to the cultures that we want to differentiate ourselves because we want to be Europeans, we want to be Greek, but then you have countries which come from Greece, and then you have minarets which are remnants from the Ottoman Empire, but at the same time we want to remind ourselves that we are Greek, so we have the Greek flag everywhere, even though we are an independent republic and we have our own flag. And then this was also set up as an installation in the exhibition. I actually created the wallpaper for this, and I will show you some. Again, it was related to the social situation as I understood it in Cyprus. And maybe you can tell me what you think it is, since Fereshteh mentioned that we can have a discussion between the while I'm talking. So these are different variations of the same pattern I did. What do you think? Does it remind you of something? Yes? So basically, I wanted to make it beautiful because this is how I felt that things were, like the position of women in Cyprus, the package well, everything was beautiful, but actually their position is not so good in the sense that they're still living in a patriarchal society and there's a lot of fetishization and commodification of the body. And so I was invited to do an intervention as part of a group exhibition in a museum. It's an ethnographic museum. And I did display where I am and I used the same patterns, but with the same Byzantine colors of the Byzantine days, and tried to integrate it, make it a bit seamless in there. And so patterns that you see were becoming important for me very long. This is from a residency in an exhibition I did in Dresden. I don't know if you know about Dresden in Germany. It's very close to where the Meissen factory is located. Meissen was the first European manufacturer of porcelain, and this is their most famous pattern that they have, the Zwiebelmuster, they call it. And I had this idea that I want to make a shift between the man-made object and the natural object, which is the rock, between something that's very fragile like porcelain and something that is very hard. And I kind of transferred these patterns of the porcelain onto rocks and made this installation. And again, as you can see, it's about cultural transfers because Meissen was the first factory making European porcelain quite late. I think it was 17 or even later, 17th century and later, because the Chinese were keeping the secrets of porcelain and they weren't giving them to the Europeans, so they had to steal them, like alchemists had to go and find a way to remanufacture what was happening in China. And even the patterns are actually based on Chinese patterns. And actually, they're not even, Zwiebel means onion. it's not even an onion in China, it was supposed to be peach. So there is a kind of a misunderstanding in the cultural transfer. So anyway, another maybe project that might be interesting for you is a project I did in New York as part of a residency I did in SVA in 2009. And the whole exhibition was curated by the same curatorial team that later that year did the art in odd places. And I also took part in that because I applied for that as well. So what I did, and this kind of relates to the festival that we were both part in, and we were invited in. It was a peripatetic poem. So I took the poem, and I placed it on 23rd Street, I think it was, in Manhattan, and in different locations. And I tried to make it correspond to the place, like every verse is related to the place I placed it. For example, this was a church where they have the kitchen for the disadvantaged, and the verse is kind of talking about loneliness. And therefore, I stand in the desert on my days, so talking about loneliness. And people were really stopping and wondering, because I also used the language which was corresponding to that place. And this is on Flatiron Square, so there you always get a lot of sun, and so the verse was, the sun is warm, but cannot match your tender embrace. We installed that very early in the morning. It took the authorities a couple of days to understand that this was not actually a real sign, and so I was trying to sensitize people because I was getting this idea that everybody's walking around like zombies, very, in a hurry to do their jobs, their chores, and nobody was noticing anything about the landscape or where they are or whatever. And then I tried to make these places. Also, I had a lot of limitations. Like I always used signs that were already destroyed, and I couldn't cover any important material, important information, but I did try to imitate the typography of the sites and insert these messages. And then I was, as I said, the team liked it so much that they asked me to do a whole series of signs next to water hydrants. So when they did the show later on 14th Street, they asked me to do a series of this. And the lines were always related to the liquid elements. The poetry is by my husband, by the way, so I kind of forced him into a collaboration, but I think he liked it. And so in this video, it's the same, I forced him to do the narration. So this is the area that is near my house. It's a stop-motion video, actually, in the land of no, it's called, because in 2004, we had a referendum where we were supposed to choose whether we want to be reunited again with the Turkish Cypriot side. And people, through manipulation of our politicians, people actually voted, the majority voted no, even though we have defined that we want to be reunited, but the terms we were given were not, something that people thought is acceptable, but at the same time it is very much related with the nationalistic elements, and so I took advantage of this place, which is near my house, which has very strong nationalistic symbols, and played with this idea of no. Oki means no. And of course, it's a very loaded place because there are all these things happening there. Anyway, it's on YouTube. Later, if anyone is interested, I can play it. And this nationalistic element was also part of this poem. So I was living, and I'm living in the center, and I see all these different nationalities living together, and they're going to school. My children go to multinational schools. When I see that Cypriots are still stuck up with this idea of the national, we are using the Greek national anthem again, which is again problematic for me. So I get a video of the children of this school singing the national anthem, which is quite bloodthirsty. And then I asked them to state their, I don't know if I can play it from here, state their identity before the camera. And the things they were saying were quite arbitrary. Like, my father is Romanian, my mother is Serbian, but I feel Greek, and things like that. So this was a kind of exploration for me to really think about how these ideas are constructed. And related to that was again a series of landscapes, again was with the territorial problematic and landscape seen as weakness of this disjoint reality. This is near the checkpoint, so we have the Venetian walls which are separating our side from the northern side, which is occupied, and then we have settlers who are watching, trying to pick through what's happening on our side, because the UN tower in the middle. And then, this is a project that I did for the missing persons in Cyprus, because we have missing persons from both sides, because we both did nasty things. Driven by nationalism. So there are a lot of graves which are being dug up, and people are now finding their relatives with the DNA method, but for many, many years they were considered missing, and relatives did not have closure. So because it's an open wound, many of them go crazy, many of them are in medications. And so we did this with a committee, with bi-communal committee of missing persons, and I created a marble plaque, like we put in memorials, but this plaque could not be installed anywhere. It was a traveling plaque because there is no resting place for these people since they have no closure. And so it's moving around, and it's acknowledging this group graves that we have all over the island. And of course, the text is related to the fact that we have to change something if we don't want same things to be happening. And then this is the project that I mentioned, Fereshteh, you know about it, and it was related to the metro. So because we have this idea of intercommunal strife, violence, and war, we have not benefited much from urban infrastructure development, and we have all these contesting narratives, and so I was very much interested in this layering of narratives in space, and it's really striking how people from each side know very little about the other side. So I decided to do this interactive map. This was the draft, of course. A friend of mine saw it and she said, you have to do this. And I said, okay, let's do this. And these are the different spots. Of course, this metro would pass through the divided line, pass through the two communities. And it's stuck. I don't know why it's stuck. Okay. So when there was this open call by the Municipal Arts Center, that advertised itself as an attempt to deal with the broad spectrum of crucial issues that affect Cyprus, society beyond the Cyprus problem. I realized I have to do this. So we did, by the way, Demi was a collaborator here because she helped me with the logo of this metro. And then I had we did it where everybody thought that we really have a network, we really have to both languages, and I have the media handles here, I have the Facebook, and I have the Twitter, and I try to crowdsourcing to get people to tell me which are their important spots, whether they're historical, political, anecdotal, whatever, to include them together with the different narratives. So this is the exhibition, and I have this spot where people could enter their landmarks, and then I have also the occupied area in the bookstore, similar spot where they could add their stops. And of course we have to make all the necessary stickers and other promotional material. People are still calling me to find out about the metro. So, and then this somehow a Belgian curator got interested in this project, the peripatetic one, the metro one. He said, let's do a festival in Cyprus about walking practices and performative practices in spaces. And I said, let's do it. I didn't know back then how much work it is, and we did it, but it was very, very good idea because that's where I met Fereshteh. And you see, it was a very rich program. And I'm going to only talk about my project there, even though there were many, many interesting artists participating. So I decided to do something similar with the metro, but including children from my God's kindergarten, which is also found in the center of the city. So I asked these children to tell me which are their favorite spots in the city, which are their happy spots, and they came up with some ideas that we recorded through mapping. And then Fereshteh actually was there when they presented it to us. And of course, they were much different than the grown-ups. Because they were able to spend time with the parents, free time to play. So none of that nationalistic obsession. And then something which brings me closer to this project as I'm ending this presentation, this is how we ran the time, was when I worked for this sample symposium. So I started working with a friend of mine in Bulgaria, organizing this symposium in Istanbul, which at the time was very interesting. It was very central during the Ottoman Empire. And during the Ottoman Empire, contrary to what we've been told, actually all the communities were working and living together. So it's the same, it has been told that the same artists, the same painters would work in the synagogue, in the mosque, and in the church. They didn't mind working for different religions. They worked together. So with this painting, I kind of put them all together in a landscape which resembles the Byzantine icon. And of course, I was also interested to record what is important and what is not important to be remembered. So I did some rabbins in the town, and then I'm basically having this project, which I hope that you understand now how it relates to what I've done previously, because externally, visually, it might look different, because in this project, I'm trying to make a book of hours, which is a manuscript, like the medieval manuscripts, the illuminated manuscripts, but make it different. And I'm going to say how different. So this project has been on the road, has been presented in different countries and in different conferences and exhibitions. But the idea is that in the end they want to become an artist's book. But I'm still in the process of that. So I'm showing here the images, but actually I still need to do the text. So the Book of Hours is a book of prayers anointed for particular canonical hours, times of the day used by Roman Catholics, for private devotions. So my idea is to create a contemporary Book of Hours based on the integration of ancient symbols and texts into a contemporary body of work. So, this idea that we saw in the beginning of creating rituals to uplift us and to save us is kind of coming together here again, because these books, these symbols, and these texts that we see in these books were used to exactly do that, to help people transcend their physical existence, their suffering in physical existence, and to get to something higher. So people would like to look how there is some kind of a divine plan. So I looked through some ancient maps, not ancient, but from the 18th century. This is supposedly the trajectory of Venus around the Earth. So people were looking for this structure, this harmony that could be found in the universe. There is something more than what we see around us. And so I am interested in these symbols which are universal for me. Like this is called the Star of David, but actually it's a much more ancient sign. It's a Vedic sign. We see it in India, we see it in other places of the world. So I'm kind of more interested how these symbols are traveling all over the world, how they're changing their meaning. And what is the meaning for us now? What has been in the past? How do they relate? Are there any archetypal truths behind these images and these texts? And so these are some examples that you actually can see in life there. So for example, these are different kinds of angels, angel representations. And I'm going to move actually to the part where I explain a little bit about text, which you're not going to see here. Sorry. So the idea is that there is going to be text, and this is based on David's Psalm 23. So after I did the review, I'm doing the opposite of what the medieval manuscripts are doing. So they were actually illustrating the text, and I am writing the text to the image somehow. So I did the image, and then I said, okay, let me see how I can do it. So in order to do it, I learned this Celtic knots and this uncial calligraphy. I was researching a lot of medieval books. This is adapted from the Book of Kells. Then, for example, this is a Byzantine saint, but I was interested to find other analogies. I found analogies from other cultures. So this is from this is the draft page, of course, but I had to learn Sanskrit because I wanted to use the text from Patanjali that's talking about something very similar to what the idea of St. Mamas was. So to create these juxtapositions in the pages. Like, there are some archetypal truths, and we have touched upon them in different times, in different spaces, but they're there, and we can actually put them together and see that we're not God different, but actually we're more similar than we want to think. And this is important in this era of wars that we see. So each time I'm trying to get the right layout as well. For example, this is based on the Israeli Keturah. Yes?
Is it the Keturah?
This is a text I'm making for when they get married. Yes? Okay, so and this of course relates to this symbol, which is a symbol of unity. And I spoke to someone and I explained this idea about the apocryphal gospels, which will be carrying more truth than the ones that came later. So I also tried to do a medieval rendering of this excerpt from the Gospel. and this is the draft one that is going to be together with this one. And just finishing with what inspired me, I think it was related to what I was doing in Cyprus, because I found that these symbols were reappearing in different things, in different places. This is like an autumn tree, but it has the flower of life in it, and it has the Star of David. And for me, it was very, very interesting how these symbols reappear in different places, how they change meaning. This is from the mosque sample. I think I got a lot of inspiration from that. Basically, that's it. This is something that I've been doing lately, which also relates with this idea that the yantras that are related again. To this idea that the image actually carries some kind of power that can help you transcend and transform, and they actually use this in meditation to invoke different energies, the energy of bliss, of Venus, and the energy of this is Mars, so it's the energy of war and determination and career-driven stuff. So I was very much interested in this idea of the image and how it becomes powerful, can make us, can help us into becoming what we strive to become. And so this is part of this is the research. This is actually what interests me. And if you have any questions, thank you for your attention.